immigration. Scamnesty, as some are calling it. Obama and his executive orders. Branstad trying to simply get rid of somebody. And floppy. That's today.
Let's get it started. Ha! Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Ha! Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
Let's get it started in here.
Welcome to The View from a Pew, a conversation among Christians who are out to grow their faith by asking the simple questions, the tough questions, and the stuff you really wish your pastor would talk about. Come on now, let's reason together. It's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so join the conversation. Call 855-244-0077. That's 855-244-0077. Now, here's your host, J. Michael McCoy.
And the balloons go up. Thank you very much, Father Tattoo, our producer. I'm J. Michael McCoy. And now in its 37th year, I just had a birthday of me being in radio in June. So it is now the 37th year of you listening to Mac's World in some way, fashion, or another. And so if you've been a part of any part of that history like Tom has, Craig, I think you were on 98 with me.
I think once or twice.
Yeah. You never came on the country. So we didn't know each other back then.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But I knew you because you had that slick-looking cowboy hat, and I always figured you were one of my cowpoking buddies. But anyway, for those of you that have listened for so many years, thank you.
I came on one day tentatively to 98.3, and I had your reputation that preceded you as well, and I was wondering what I would get, and that was been some years back.
Yeah. What do you mean what you'd get? What you'd get. I remember one of my best friends, and I'll tell you off mic, but I won't tell you on, called me after that first interview with you, and just ripped me a new one. He's not a fan of yours. And just ripped me a new one. And for years, he would say, "So, buddy of Tom Coates." He wouldn't call me Mac anymore. All right, for those of you listening on the internet, thank you very much. We know that you have lots of choices through podcasts and other channels that you could be listening to. Thanks for giving us a chance. We're honest. We're transparent. We don't act like we're in the middle. We're all three Christian conservatives. We blog about it. We write about it. We put our money where our mouth is. And so if that's something you want to listen to, we'd love to have you. And if you disagree, we respect you very much. Except if you're Michael Libby. But if we disagree, your voice is welcome here because it's always been a conversation in Mac's World.
Is Libby still holding a grudge from when we had him on the show a few weeks ago?
I don't know. I'm going to try to get him to see if he'll come back.
If he says no, not only no, but hell no, we'll know where we stand.
Well, I think he'll probably say, "I'll come back on your show, but I don't want Tom there."
That's probably right.
That's probably
I'll
what
fill in.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
We'll throw him to the lions at that point.
You can find Craig Robinson's weekly blog?
Daily
blog at the IowaRepublican.com. So we encourage you to go there. And Tom, you don't do a blog, do you?
No, I
don't. You should do a blog.
Well, I read a rather unflattering blog about myself last week. That's as close as I've come.
From who? You don't have to say.
Chuck Offenberger.
The Iowa boy?
The Iowa boy.
Well, he's a rhino.
He's apparently masquerading as a Republican up there in Jefferson. They apparently kicked him out of the Republican Party, but I had the temerity to go up and speak about the proposed casino in front of a town hall meeting of about 200 people, and thought it was very well received, but not according to the blog I read.
Oh,
I was a liar. I aspired to be a demagogue, but I wasn't interesting enough.
Really?
Just a litany of complaints.
Really?
Yeah.
I want you to tell me later where I can find that blog. I'd like to read that. It's always fun, Craig, when you read somebody who doesn't like Tom Coates. And you know what? I got to give you a credit, though, brother, because you are so humble. You never get mad at these people. You never take it. You never try retribution or vindication. You don't put them on a feces list somewhere.
Oh, I'm somewhat bigoted, too. I started off with a wife joke, and a rather bad one. And so that was the thing I responded back to him. I said, Chuck, I said, you said my joke was bad. I said, but I just, really cracked him up. And I said, from the reaction we got, either many people disagree with you or they share my low sense of standards when it comes to acceptable humor.
Yeah. So you've talked to him since he wrote the blog?
I sent him an email and there was no response.
Okay.
Now, he interviewed me some afterwards and we talked about some things. For instance, you know, when Branstad had told me why he had finally, after his vetoes and everything else, supported the casinos, I just repeated that. Well, he said, I travel with Branstad. I know the true story, and he's not telling you the right. You know, it's just nonsense. So I think he's a big casino supporter.
Yeah.
He came in with an agenda, and he was looking for everything he could to rip at.
What makes him a Republican?
You'd have to ask somebody.
Okay.
Apparently, again, the Republican Party up there in Jefferson threw him out, so they apparently didn't buy it.
I'm serious about this. Why don't you email him and invite him on our show?
Well, he won't answer my one. I was very, pleasant when I responded back to him in a joking way after the insults he threw at me hot and heavy. So I think it's going to be like the other person that you just recently told me to.
Yeah.
That he also, from that same meeting, called me up in a disjointed, profane, and angry, and we won't say who that is.
Nope. But has he responded to your
him,
request?
And he has not responded to the email, not one peep, and I don't expect to hear anything. And it wasn't because I misspelled your last name either.
All right. Well, and as you could just tell by that conversation between Tom and I, that's called transparency. We don't lay out names when we're calling them out because that's something between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just think this is a great political talk show.
Yeah, I mean,
because we take care of people. We don't dive bomb them. We never hit and run them. But we certainly are genuine.
Yeah, but we're just talking like we would talk off mic, and without throwing the names in, I'm just telling you what's happening there. And as I talked to a fellow I consider a friend, Bill Petrosky, which I was also ripped for mentioning Bill's name and saying he was a friend. But Bill knows Chuck and has known him for some years. And I said, just tell Chuck that in the unlikely event that he survives me, he will not have to be worried about being called to give my eulogy at my service.
All right. Start with let's start with a couple things lightheartedly. I want to start with Floppy because and what happens is there is a 12-foot by 14-foot, 12-foot tall, 14-foot wide display in the Iowa Historical Society on Floppy. Now, in the likelihood you don't know who Floppy is, Floppy was a puppet by who was mastered by a guy by the name of Dwayne Ellett, and he was the afternoon kids show on Channel 13 in the late 50s, 60s to early 70s, I think. Isn't that about right?
Yes. Well, I think my kids even got in on the Floppy show, and my daughter was born in 76. My other daughter was born in 79. Before we moved to Texas, they both got on the Floppy show. So we're talking probably even early 80s.
Okay. Because I know...
At least late 70s.
I moved into Des Moines in 78, and he was on the air then, but not much longer. All right.
Well, I grew up watching Floppy. In fact, he had a Sunday show even. They put him on where he was on a boat, and Floppy and Dwayne would do a cartoon show on Sunday. We were pretty limited in our viewing. We didn't have hundreds of channels like the kids do today.
Yeah.
We had ABC, which was WOI, KCCI, WHO.
Channel 11.
Well, and Channel 11 for limited hours viewing. And so that was and so if you got Bill Riley and Floppy.
Yep.
I mean, those were the two. You watched them and got your cartoon fix in, and that was it.
So for some reason, and what I've been understood, and tell me if you hear any different, heard any different on this, Craig. It's simply about room. It's about display room in the Historical Society.
Correct.
All right. So they've decided to take Floppy down, and there has been this outrage about Floppy being gone. Well, me being an entrepreneur, I went to a buddy of mine at a very, very large local grocery store chain that's founded and run out of our area. And I said, you ought to borrow this, put it in a professional display, and put it in each one of your stores for a month and allow people to come out and see Floppy.
Right.
Well, they took that idea to the Historical Society, and they won't loan it out. Yeah. Apparently, it means so much that they don't want to risk its damage, but it means so little they don't want to show people who Floppy is. Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm not in that business. Mary County, who's in charge of that, is really a good person, very good person, county family, very civic-minded. Sure. So there must be reasons that none of us are told. But
I think Floppy will return in time. We'll see.
You're an optimist.
I mean, how about the state fair at least?
Well, yeah.
Let the state fair borrow it.
Look, as there's more and more things that we need to be proud of in Iowa, I think we need to find new venues for some of this stuff. And I think that when I think of everything with WHO radio and some of our TV stations and that kind of history, maybe it's time that we have a special place for those things that we can celebrate our communications history.
Yeah,
maybe there's got a good point.
That's a good point. Maybe we need a Hall of Pride that's broadcast.
Well, why isn't it? It could go to the Hall of Pride.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's a different take on it, but I mean, that's something that you all remember. I'm from Eastern Iowa. I don't remember the Floppy Show.
Okay.
But I mean, to me, that is part of history in Central Iowa, and I would hate for it to just be put in a closet somewhere.
Yeah, Dick Youngs ought to be remembered for his contribution. Who's the weather lady? McBurney. I mean, she was revolutionary as a female, very dry-witted weather lady.
And let's not forget, our history with Ronald Reagan and Jim Zabel. It's great.
Well, certainly right now would also be hot.
I mean, I think there is a place where this stuff needs to live because as our society, we are so connected now to TV. We are so connected to radio personalities and everything that it is part of our history, and we shouldn't let it just be brushed aside and we all forget.
I know Jack Legier personally. I've known him for 30 years, and I'll call him. He's the guy that runs the Iowa Hall of Pride.
Yeah.
And I listened to him the other day on Michelson, and he kind of talked about the history of the Iowa Hall of Pride. And it was locally funded, so maybe we could get the broadcast companies. I doubt it because they're all out of town now.
Right.
But it'd be fun to get them all to put in a certain amount of money.
Did I send you that tape that we did maybe 3 years ago where we interviewed Jim Zabel at the Hall of Pride for half an hour? I'll send that to you.
Who's we?
Kim Baker, who does. And we had him down, and I don't think he'd ever been in the Hall of Pride till right then. Jack took him around and gave him a tour, and he was very impressed. Of course, he was featured there at some points. And then we did a half an hour TV interview of just him and his experiences.
Yeah. Well, who's the farm editor that dropped dead a couple years ago? Mark
Pearson.
Mark Pearson. He ought to be recognized.
Well, and think about everything that he's done with the Iowa State Fair and all that. Yeah. I mean, these are people that we've all grown up with, we've all recognized, and to me, it's not. I was thinking about Mark the other day. I mean, the big show isn't the same without Mark. There was a tractor ride. It's different, and I think that we should find ways to honor those institutions that we all became so familiar with.
Okay, you got me on a project now.
10-4.
But the problem is I'll want myself in and they won't let me in. That's the problem. I'm like the flag hanging upside down. I'm nothing but bad news to the regular press. All right. Well, we're up against a break now, so we won't start a second topic yet. But when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about this Branstad Godfrey situation. And this is an employee that Terry Branstad inherited, and he was being paid $100 and some thousand. Branstad didn't like the way he did his job. Where was his job in? What department? Human Services?
No, I think he was Workforce Development.
You're right. It is Workforce Development. Yeah. And
Workers' Compensation Office.
Yeah, so Branstad wanted to let him go, and this guy raised the gay flag, and now rather than the right to work state, which says I can fire you for any reason I want, you can get benefits, but that's it. Now all of a sudden it's become a gay issue. So we'll talk about that. And later on in the hour, Obama and his executive orders. And did the vote go off last night on immigration? It's supposed to happen like 6:30 in the Senate?
Procedural vote did.
Procedural
and it
vote.
Cleared.
All right, so we'll talk about the immigration bill that is winding its way through the halls of Washington. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If you haven't heard lately, thanks for listening. I love this job. Couldn't do it without you. Craig Robinson from the IowaRepublican.com is in the house. Tom Coates, and of course our producer, Father Tattoo. Don't forget Garland Scott, one of the men who ran the Faith Initiative under the Bush administration, will be in Des Moines on July 10th at a meeting of Testify at Incredible Pizza. More at that website.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The point is, we are free now to do what we could never do before, and that is love and obey Christ and answer to Him, our Savior, rather than answer to someone else on this earth who sets Him up as your authority. You and I answer to Christ.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittiesusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
21 minutes after the hour of the 25th day of June. Maxwell Live with Tom Coates, Father Tattoo producing. Our guest today, Craig Robinson from the Iowa Republican. Here, give me that back so I can... I'm sorry. I gave Tom a note. Yeah, that's one there. Civic Skinny, which is an article written in City View, and I say that just because as journalists, they deserve to get credit for their writing. So I'm not saying I agree with their slant by any means.
No, but written by Michael Gardner.
This was written by Gardner?
Oh, yeah.
Civic Skinny all the time, hasn't he? I mean,
that's pretty much the basic understanding. It's not credited to any.
I was going to say, they say that it's written by City View, by the editors at City View. Okay, well, anyway.
I think that's a.k.a. Michael Gardner.
With Tom.
Can you turn up Tom's mic just a little bit? So Branstad gets elected, and he has the right to put anyone he wants in any position that he's got, correct or not?
Not completely correct.
Okay.
So this Godfrey individual was appointed by Culver to a 6. I think he's been there longer than that, but right before the election, he was appointed to another 6-year term as the workers' compensation position. And so, it's just like the Board of Regents. I mean, they're appointed to 6-year terms, and so you can't really do anything with them until their term's up. unless they quit. So that's kind of the situation. That's the type of employee that we're dealing with. It's not not just a government worker that you could build a. If there's a state employee that you have performance issues with, you could document it and you could build a case, and then you could you could fire that individual, and maybe it's contested, but you could then state your case.
So you're saying his job was political?
His job is political. He's a political appointee.
Okay, and what is he supposed to be doing at the Iowa workforce?
Well, I'm not super familiar with this case, but I think that there were performance issues that Branstad has previously stated, his administration has stated, that they thought were not up to par. And I think that there was even some sort of hint of some sort of Iowa workforce scandal in there that they thought Godfrey was part of. And so they had asked him to resign. And he refused. And so based on his poor performance and track record, the Branstad administration decided to dock his pay, which the governor is completely has control of and can do. He has the authority to do so. And so Godfrey turns and says, well, I'm being unfairly criticized, and it's based upon my sexual preference, which nobody had even discussed, raised, or even knew. I don't even think the Branstad administration knew that he was of a different sexual persuasion. And so...
well, it doesn't make any difference. Now you do, and you're discriminating against me.
Right. No, I mean, and that, sadly, that's where society's going. You know, if you are an individual that lives an alternative lifestyle, and someone does anything to you, maybe your employer or whatever, you scream bloody murder, and you do that. And so that's the case we have here. And I believe this individual also has hired Roxanne Conlon to defend him, I believe.
Well, now your own firm is working for the state, according to this.
Yeah, right.
Lamarca and Landry.
Yeah, those are my guys.
And
they handle most of everything.
Yeah,
that
so
I do.
they apparently, according to Gardner here, they racked up $459,000 legal fees so far on this issue.
1,413 hours at $325 an hour.
Yeah. Now this joker here, this Godfrey, had been making $112,000 a year, which struck me, Mac. I mean, we had Dave Vout working for 10 years as the auditor of the state. I think a much more important. He made less than this.
Yeah, absolutely.
He made less than this, and so they've at least dropped him down to $73,500, which is the lowest level they can put him. But he's costing us a fortune just for what appears to be a spurious and rather specious claim. And he's hanging in there. Now, according to Gardner, he's a hell of a hand, you know, and he's greatly in demand in Washington and could be making a lot more. Well, I wish he would move on, please. Move on. They'll appreciate some of your attributes out there, I'm sure, much more than what we do in Des Moines, Iowa.
Well, I just, whenever you see a legal bill of $500,000 being paid by the taxpayers, everybody, no matter what side of the aisle they're on, wonders what the heck's going on.
Now, I don't like high legal bills, especially when they're funded by the taxpayer. But, I mean, think about what the alternative of not fighting it is. I mean, if you think this individual is incompetent and you've asked him to leave and now he's fighting, he's not fighting the fact that Branstad doesn't like him. He's fighting the fact that his pay is docked. That's what the lawsuit's about, and that he's being unfairly
I think there's a little bit more to it as I read than just the pay issue here. I mean,
well, of course they're going to say that, but really, I mean, the only finding is that he's being discriminated against, and so. But the point is that if you can't look, government is too big. Government has no controls. Look at Washington, D.C., and here we have a governor who has identified an individual who he doesn't think is up to par, wants to replace him, can't replace him. So they dock his pay, which he is legitimately able to do, and thus he fights it.
Well, he was supposed to serve out a term.
$500,000.
His predecessor, Vilsack, when he first got elected, and you know the story is that he was visited by the casinos, and they agreed to pay off 6 figures in campaign debt. And his first act was to fire the 3 racing and gaming commissioners who were supposedly serving out terms. And they asked to meet with him, and he said, no, go play in the traffic. I'm not even going to talk to you. And they all stepped away. Now, how is that different than what Vilsack's asking this guy to do? You're a political appointee. You're serving out a term. You're being paid. I'm asking you to step aside.
Look, most people would step aside. If there's a problem, if there's an issue, if things aren't gelling correctly, I think most people would say, hey, look, I'm a political appointee. I get it. You want to go in a different direction. I'm not going to fight it. But every once in a while, you run into an individual who says, no, I'm appointed to a 6-year term, and I'm not going to leave. And, I mean, to me, that's the classic definition of a career bureaucrat.
And there's a principle at line. You're right. There's a principle at stake, and to let him stand up and, in a defiant fashion, say, no, I'm not leaving, would put anybody else you ask for in the same position. Well, he said, no, I'm not going to do it. Then I'll say, no, I'm not going to do it. And pretty soon you have no control over any of those people, do you?
It's
and
like
this guy is clearly not
6
somebody that would have the Branstad agenda at heart. And he wants to change some of the tone and some of the agenda. He wants to certainly cut costs and be more efficient. But he also wants people that are his people. And normally you do not blame whether it's a Democrat or Republican want to get loyal people around you in these positions.
I think governors should have people loyal to their agenda,
absolutely,
and their administration on board.
But you said that Governor Culver did this appointment at the end of his term.
Craig said that.
I believe
Craig said he reappointed.
Term.
And it's not. You know what else Culver did was even more outrageous than this. Was he negotiated with the state workers union for that pay raise instead of turning it over to his successor, who.
Yeah, he gave the unions a sweetheart deal.
Should have said, well, you're going to be the governor. I'll step aside. You can negotiate this. But instead, Culver, just anything you want. There wasn't even a counter proposal, was there, Craig?
But Culver even took a lot of people who are at-will state employees, meaning they're hired by department heads. And so when administrations leave, these are the people that get flushed out and new people come in. Culver actually took a lot of people and put them into a protected union jobs in the state government who they can't be replaced. And
was this like an angry, petulant child that is upset because he lost the game and he's trying to muddy the water up as much as possible, or was he trying to ingratiate himself with the state workers union?
You had it right the first time. This is a governor in Chet Culver who refused to show up to Terry Branstad's inaugural. And so I do think that he was a little. Absolutely, he did not show.
There's a history of
that. Normal?
That is not normal.
Okay. No, there's a litany.
In the United States, we talk about this peaceful transfer of power when a new presidential administration is coming on board or a new governor. We did not have that in Iowa the last time around.
There's a litany of things that Culver did and didn't do that were childish and petulant during his 4 years. So that should be of no surprise.
How he managed money.
Yeah, that should be of no surprise to. We could talk about Culver stories the rest of the hour, but let's not do that.
So is Godfrey? Is the basis of his I'm not going to leave is because I'm appointed? No, I should say this. The basis of the suit. I'm appointed and I get to stay. B, you don't get to cut my pay. Or C, I'm gay. This is discrimination.
B and C.
B and C.
You didn't have a legitimate reason to cut my pay, and I'm being discriminated against. That's my understanding of it.
Well, I can say one thing. George LaMarca and his firm handle almost 100% of my stuff and have. And I've put many of their children through college throughout my career. And the reason...
Is that Greg Landry, by the way?
Huh?
Is Greg Landry his partner?
Yeah.
I see him down at the club on a regular basis. He's a cigar smoker.
Okay. One of the reasons that the primary reason that I use that law firm is they're good. They write a piece of paper, a contract or something for me, and I take it to you, and you and I sign it. They'll defend it to the end. Mm-hmm. Number two is I like George LaMarca. I like what he stands for, and George really came to local fame when the Yonkers fire in, 78, I think, when those people were killed.
Yeah,
and he represented the people that were killed. And the third reason is George LaMarca is a bulldog. And he's the guy that if you hire him, first of all, he's not going to take the case unless there's purpose in the case. Not a financial gain. There's purpose in the case. That when he wins this case, he feels like he's won a victory over wrong.
Right.
All right. But you don't want to get on his bad side. I mean, I've been in depositions with this guy, and I'm embarrassed for the guy that I'm suing or that's suing me, who's being having a deposition taken because Lamarca is just anyway. He's the guy we want representing our state and the governor, and it's just too bad that it has to come down to this. All right. When we come back, I'm going to add another thing on the agenda. I want to talk about Snowden for a little bit.
Yeah,
James Snowden. Traitor, or is he a hero? And that question is all over Facebook. It is all over the nightly news. It is all over everywhere. Do we know where he's at yet? Last I heard, he was going to fly from Moscow to Cuba, but he hadn't left Moscow yet.
Apparently, he's still in the Russian airport.
Should Putin, in the sake of relations with America, let him go, or should he send him here? That's the question I'd like to ask, and I'm going to open up the phone lines on that. 1-855-244-0077. Should the Russian government, Putin, Prime Minister Putin?
Yeah.
President Putin?
He's whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
President,
all-powerful.
Medvedev was...
Should he respect his
him.
relationship with the United States and send Snowden home, or should he do what he wants to do with him? That's what we'll talk about when we come back. Craig Robinson from the IowaRepublican.com is in the house. Father Tattoo producing. Tom Coates, my co-host. And I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. By the way, don't forget a Rebels Cause Radio, 8 o'clock every Thursday night. It's just crazy radio. It's like the Monty Python of Christian talk. You probably won't be able to get through a whole show without some Alka-Seltzer, but check it out this Thursday.
Lead, owner, and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seemed like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going, though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
We're the ones in the pew, not pulpit. Come on now, let's reason together. The phone lines are open, so call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
22 before the top, Salem Radio Network News, and then that Calvinistic Superman himself, Michael Mudloff from Westkirk Presbyterian Church, will be here this afternoon. Craig Robinson from the Iowa Republican is here. Of course, Tom Coates on Tuesdays and Father Tattoo, who is being uniquely silent today. I just can't figure out why he's so quiet.
Taking a nap with his eyes open.
You think that's it? Kind of like cows do that, don't they? Don't they?
Yes, they do.
Stand up and, yeah.
Maybe it's because you have me burning in hell, Mac.
I have you burning in hell?
Well, that's what I hear.
Oh, from Friday's program?
Yeah, apparently.
Well, I'm just telling you. I'm just speaking the truth. All right, Snowden, right? James Snowden, patriot or traitor?
What he revealed, I think, in some ways was helpful for us to know. I understand there were difficulties doing it through proper channels, but it's also hard to say patriot to somebody that runs off first to communist China. And then transports himself over to Russia, and stands back and just defies them to catch him and extradite him. I have to go with the latter. I think that, but I'm glad in some ways that we found out some of what he's telling. I'm worried though that it's going to betray our security to our enemies out there, and we do have enemies. And for what I believe that China is a natural enemy of ours. I know they're a trading partner, but I think they're a natural enemy. And I think when they set themselves up as a military power, we'll have direct confrontations with them.
Traitor, absolutely.
Okay.
No doubt in my mind. I'm like Tom. I think it's good that Americans know what our federal government is listening in on us. But he went way beyond that. He went way beyond just being a whistleblower. This is a guy who it seems that he intentionally took employment with a defense or intelligence firm to gain information and then to take that information and to give it not only to alert the American people of wiretapping and all those things that's going on in terms of listening into cell phones and data mining or what we look at on the internet, but he also went to China and said, hey, this is what America's doing to you. And meanwhile, so I'm just
shortly before that was revealed that China had stolen some of our top military secrets.
Well, China hacks us daily.
Yeah,
in the United States.
So then this takes the heat off them because it justifies what they're doing.
Chinese government hacks our American products. Apple. Apple creates an iPhone and they steal it, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so, I also think it's a little hypocritical that he's this freedom-loving individual, and he goes to China and now is taking up hiding in Russia. The most oppressive regimes ever when it comes to violating an individual's basic right of freedom. And so
history of murdering tens of millions of its citizens, both of them.
Right, yeah. And you can't stand up and protest your own government. It's their way or the highway. So look, he's a traitor, even though I'm glad that I do know some of the information that he leaked.
Craig from the IowaRepublican.com. Craig, if he had stopped with the whistleblowing on the NSA within the IRS and us in Verizon and Americans, and he had not ever exposed anything to China or Russia, that makes him a pure hero, right?
Well, I think that makes him a whistleblower. I don't know if it makes him a hero, but I do think it makes him a whistleblower, and I think an individual like that would have no problem sitting in front of Congress in an investigative hearing and letting them know what he did and why he did it. But that's not the route he chose. I mean, I think his actions following that are really what disturbs me and what really, I think, classifies him as a classic traitor.
All right, now I'm going to sound ignorant for a minute. Who's the guy who escaped to Ecuador and is now hiding there? The WikiLeaks?
The WikiLeaks guy. His name escapes me as well. But I think it's all connected here. I think this is part of WikiLeaks.
Really?
Absolutely. I think this is just my theory.
Okay, well, back up and first tell me what WikiLeaks is, because maybe I don't understand that term.
WikiLeaks is a website basically that takes classified information of our government, maybe other governments, military information, and basically makes it public knowledge. And I understand that there's a libertarian movement in this country that feels like, you know, we all say we want transparency and all that stuff. But I also think that there is some information that for the best interest of the United States and our security here at home that we shouldn't all be privy to. For example, I don't think it's necessary for the American public, everyone in the American public, to know exactly where the President of the United States is going to be at every waking minute, because I think that presents a security threat. I also think that what our troops are doing and what we're doing as a military, I also think that there are things there that should be protected. And so, but the people at WikiLeaks think that no, they get their hands on classified materials and declassify it.
What do you think will happen?
What do I think will happen?
Is Russia going to send them home?
No, I don't. Well, Putin's already said no.
Okay.
And today, and I think that we've had icy relationships with Russia. I think this just makes it even worse. And sadly, I think that our current president is just going to sit back and take it. And I think that this sets a very dangerous thing in motion for the United States in the future, that we're not going to take a tough position on this because we're
Craig, let me ask you a real
scared.
quick question on that vein. I think there's discussion right now on whether Obama really wants us in a position of servitude, or at least not in a commanding role. He wants the decline of this nation to be accelerated, to put us in a position that we can no longer be the only superpower. And so on one hand, he might not like Putin doing this. On the other hand, maybe he doesn't care because it is accomplishing his goal, is putting us into just one of the gang, no longer the superpower, just one of the gang.
That has been the Obama administration's aim since he took office. That there's no such thing as American exceptionalism. That there's no such thing as that it's a good thing that America is the lone superpower. And so, yes, he would like to, just be in a community of nations that we all get along. The problem is with that mindset is it's a complete myth, because that there are, contrary to what he believes and many liberals believe, there are bad people in this world who want to do bad things and who hate America, not for any involvement we have militarily, but they hate us for who we are.
And we seem to be this Arab Spring that he celebrated for a while seems to be turning at least stable dictatorships over to the most radical elements. We saw it in Egypt, we saw it in Libya, and now we're about to see it perhaps in Syria.
And we don't know the ramifications of that until years to come.
Well, and let's segue there, because he's got 10,000 American troops sitting in Jordan, which is, just miles away from the trouble in Syria. He's announced that he's given, $100 million in weapons and arms to the rebels.
Al-Qaeda-backed rebels, yeah.
Yeah, and is there any... Now, Craig, I'm going to ask you to put your fair journalism hat here on. Is there any justification for the American people to go that route?
Maybe. I mean, this is where... Look, I think if we want to argue philosophies, I understand the fact that we shouldn't give arms and munitions and all these sort of things to someone that we don't necessarily know all of their intentions and all of their connections in the world. However, look, the world is a tricky place, and sometimes the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And look, there are tons of instances in American history that kind of logic has failed us. But I also believe that there are times where you have to be a little bit more strategic.
If I had more confidence in the Obama administration, which I can't think of any level that I do, I would almost assume that they're trying to at least prop up the rebels enough so we could accomplish what we had between Iran and Iraq for 8 years, where we supplied Iraq, not because we liked Iraq or thought they were the good guys, is because we wanted to try to get a more level playing field and let them kill each other off and occupy each other. Okay.
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device, your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
Like right now. Name it.
Did you feel anything?
Yeah.
You did?
Some pain. No pain at all.
I was dealing with some back issues due to the depression that I'm in, and right now they're gone.
Well, hi. My name is Mike Ahmed, and I host the show Bridge the Gap Ministry. Our vision is to bridge the gap between cultures, and what we use the Word of God, and because His riches in that Word and the wisdom is what brings us together. So we learn the Word, we speak the Word, and we practice the Word on this show every Thursday. Don't miss it. I'm looking forward to seeing you.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the Remax. We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 10 before the top. Tom, pick it up right where you were at on you don't trust this administration to handle this in Syria.
Just a nutshell. No. If I had any faith in them that they were going to just try to balance out the sides and let them blood each other up and keep each other occupied and less mischief for the rest of us that way, I'd say fine, like Iran, Iraq. But I do think that this administration has not shown itself to be competent on any level on almost any item. And so I have no confidence that that's what their agenda is. I think ultimately Syria turns in a much more radical direction even than where, I mean, they've been a surrogate of Iran's. We've not liked that, but I think it could go to Al-Qaeda and we could be much more dangerous and for our ally Israel. So that's wrapping it up.
Well, and that's where this will end up. This will end up eventually whether we defend Israel or not.
That's where it all heads.
That's where it all heads. And how long until it gets there?
And it may not be a defense. It may be a retribution because if a nuclear weapon is unleashed, much of Israel could be devastated.
Well, I'm just thinking that all of a sudden now you've got the forces of Egypt, the forces of Syria, the forces of Iraq and Iran, and no nuclear weapon used, but they go in and they just level Israel. Mm-hmm. And they'd have to do it under this administration. Because if anybody with 2 cents between their ears gets elected next year, Democrat or Republican, they're going to go back and coddle to Israel.
Well, then it probably does go nuclear because the nukes that Israel has, if overwhelming force was brought to bear, I would have to think self-preservation comes in, and then they use the nukes.
I don't want to live in that world. All right, immigration. What happened last night at 6:30 at the Senate?
Well, the Senate, the immigration bill in the Senate passed a hurdle to where it got 60 votes, so they could force a final vote for it, and then it'll end up going to the U.S. House.
And I was listening yesterday to some of the just unbelievable amendments that are socked inside of this immigration bill. One was that if you wanted, if you needed money to further your education, you could get a grant, and if you needed a car to go to school and back, they would give you money for that and food.
How tone deaf are these United States senators? How tone deaf are we that we live in a country with a huge deficit, with an unbalanced budget that doesn't create a budget, and then they just want to fill up bills with giveaways. And the thing is you talk about all the amendments on the House that were talked about. Let's talk about the amendment from Senator Grassley that was dead on arrival, which was basically, hey, we're not going to do anything. You know, we can do immigration reform, but we're not even going to start that process until that border is secure.
Exactly.
And they won't even consider it.
No, and Grassley lived through what happened under Ronald Reagan. And for those of you that aren't old enough to remember that or good enough students of history, back in his first term, Ronald Reagan proposed securing the border and an amnesty for about 3 million illegals at that point. Now, for the Republicans out there that, as Craig says, are tone deaf, understand that Ronald Reagan got more Latino votes, a bigger percentage in his first election than he did in his second after he had championed this amnesty bill. So do not believe that just because we're going to be involved, perhaps some of these senators are, in an amnesty bill, that we're going to necessarily get any big percentage of the Latino vote.
And I think Grassley has he should be listened to in this situation because he went through that. He lived through it. He learned his lesson. He regrets it because basically what it is, and it doesn't matter what the issue is, he's saying, look, been down this road before. We've granted amnesty before, and you know what? The problem got worse, not better. And so, look, this is a guy that these young pups in the Senate, the Marco Rubios of the world, should really take a listen to because he's been down that road before.
I also heard that written into this bill that if Janet Napolitano, Napolitano, I'm sorry, within, I think it was 90 or 120 days, decided that the fence was not necessary, she could stop that part of it.
That's right. And this Corker amendment, it did some things like that you're talking about that was supposed to assuage the conservatives. It didn't do it. These 100 extra pages of amendments they put in there were pork barrel, and it did things that further guarantees that it won't, I don't think, pass in the House. Craig, what do you think about its chances
it ain't going to pass in the House. I mean, look, there's already 70 Republicans they want nothing to do with this. And so maybe Democrats and the more moderate Republicans will get together and pass something. I don't think so. This is going to be a war in the House as it goes there.
We got a minute left or so. Frank, you're on the phone. I know you're involved in this and you're passionate about this. Give us your 2 cents worth, would you?
Quick, Julian Assange was the name he was looking for.
Oh, thank you.
And Tom hit it on the nail head, what I was interested in talking about. I get leery anytime the Democrats warn us of the price we're going to pay at the ballot box. Basically, George Bush got 35% of the Hispanic vote. I think McCain got a little less than that, and Romney got 27%. We're constant, and the only guy that really pulls high amongst Hispanics would be Jeb Bush, and the Republicans in the country's not going to probably go for another Bush. So whoever we nominate is going to get somewhere in that basic 25 to 30% range. And if Brother Dan is right, the reason why Romney lost is because basically the conservatives just didn't come out and vote for the guy. So I think this Hispanic thing is highly overblown. One just quick thing I want to mention.
Okay.
This idea that this is a plus for us, these illegals being here. This is like a bank robber getting in and robbing a bank, and then he takes the ill-gotten loot and turns around and starts a bank account, starts a savings account, and then because he does that, that's good for the banking industry. And this is the same bunch of baloney. They're trying to tell us that because these guys are here, it's a plus and a win-win for us.
All right, I appreciate it, Frank. Your voice is always welcome in Mac's world. All right, guys, I hear the music in the background. What do you think is going to happen with this immigration bill? Because they want to go home.
Yeah, no, I think the House is at the end of the day, I think John Boehner doesn't want to touch this. I think this is a mess over there, and it's not going to get done.
So we're not going to get immigration reform.
Right, and the Democrats are going to turn around and blame it on Republicans, which is what they want anyway. They don't want change. They want to keep this issue alive for us.
I think we may have lost one of our brightest upcoming stars, Marco Rubio. I think he may have put himself up on the petard on this one.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys saying that. That's unfortunate. Because I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be Hillary. I don't know if it's going to be Michelle. I don't know who's going to run the Democratic nomination. I don't care about the primary, but who's going to be there? We don't have anybody. Do we?
Well,
Mitt Romney's never coming back.
Ted Cruz is starting to look better out of Texas. Now, I know he's young. And
we got a long way to go.
I know.
Long way to go.
But we said that about Rubio, too, and now he's taking
all right. Craig, thank you, as always. Tom, thank you, as always. Father Tattoo, appreciate it. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, love my job, and I couldn't do it without you. I'd just be sitting here talking to myself, and I'd probably have one of those rubber blow-up guys where Tom sits, and, they just argue with me, and Craig would be somebody that didn't, they're like my puppy, Picasso, that would just sit there and bark at me so I could hear myself. But because of you, we can do this. And I just ask one thing of you, please, today, before you go to bed and you go to sleep, pray.